talking to. Actually, they're quite small events, but as you can see, this is the biggest by far. Welcome to the Concord Hangar. Why are we at the Concord Hangar? Well, one, because we've got a huge attendance this evening, and two, it's just a cool place. There's actually no kind of connection between these two machines, but this is a really cool place. And one of the things that we want you to be able to do this evening, we've got plenty of time, take as long as you like, but we'd like you to be able to get under the skin of the car, and all of you who've placed a deposit or are interested in the vehicle, we want you to see it. So the plane is open, so if you are in a queue, don't stand in a queue, take advantage of the canapes, take advantage of the hospitality, and do, if you've not been here before, take the opportunity to go and just see another British icon that is above us, and experience the little tour that they do. So once again, thank you very much for coming. This car that you see, or you will see in a few minutes, it all started for us publicly on the 6th of July, when we unveiled the car at an event at our factory in Hethel, in Norfolk, on an incredibly rainy night. It was a gamble. The gamble paid off, and the car was presented live to a big collection of media. It was mainly a media event. We couldn't hold a public event, but we had over 1 million viewers who watched the event live, and many millions that have watched that whole event on YouTube subsequent to that day. And we decided that we were going to set up a sales structure that would allow people to place deposits for the car. And the moment the car was revealed, the meter started to tick very fast, very quickly, in terms of the level of interest. We were really quite, let's just say we were overwhelmed at the level of interest. And 2 days later, on the 8th of July, we took the car to Goodwood. And again, the reaction to the car, the reaction to the design, to the whole concept was simply phenomenal. And of the 61 events that we would do just in the UK, small events, something like 5,500 people will have seen the car up and close, and hopefully have had the chance to sit inside it and kind of confirm the decision that they've made. And that's just in the UK. So for a company that normally makes about 1,500 or 1,600 cars a year, and has done for a number of years, you can see the level of interest and the scale of change that we will go through as a business over the next period of time, months and years. Now that change has come about as a result of a significant level of investment in our company, which started in 2018. And at that time, a plan was put together, which we very publicly call, and when I say very publicly, we've talked about it a lot, particularly in the media, but we very publicly call Vision 80. And Vision 80 is a long-term plan for the development of Lotus as a brand, and a global expansion of the company. And that was conceived in 2018, as I say, which was the company's 70th birthday, Lotus's 70th birthday, and is a vision of what we will look like when we celebrate our 80th birthday in 2028. And it's based on three things, three premises. So brand presentation, you can just see the way that we're presenting ourselves as a brand. Those of you that know us well, you can see that the brand is changing, and we're developing the way in which we sell, we're developing the way in which we look from a retail perspective, developing the way in which we present ourselves as an organisation generally. Our factory at Hethel, which is our headquarters, we've invested something like £100 million in a new manufacturing facility just for this car. Right the way across the site, it's a completely different place. To anybody who's been there, one or two people, generally, or normally in these events, people have been there in the past. If you went there now, you wouldn't recognise the place. And I hope that at some point in the future, you will be able to visit the factory. And one of the things that we do want to do is we'd like to try and set up a kind of factory collection process as well, which is all part of the buying experience. But that's to come. And the third part of our development is, of course, centred around product. So this is the second of our new products under Vision 80. The first was somewhat extreme in the Lotus Evora, which we launched in 2019. It will be in production at the end of this year. We're only making 130, but it's a £2 million, 2,000 horsepower, all-electric hypercar. And really we did that as a project, as a statement of intent about, one, our engineering capability, two, the way in which we're looking at the business in the future, three, to show and demonstrate the company's level of ambition, and 4 to show also a kind of new styling pattern and a new styling and a level of design for the future. And when you see this up and close, as you will do in a few seconds' time, you will see how that design in the Evora has found its way through into the design of the Emira. And my colleague Scott Walker, who is standing over here, will do a demonstration, or well, not a demonstration, but he's going to walk you around the car. And one of the things he will talk about is the design of the car and the aerodynamics of the car. So Scott will do that for you. Just for your information, Scott is Mr. Lotus. That's his yellow Esprit, by the way. That's his pride and joy, so please be very gentle with that. He's not a black belt in karate, but he does get very precious with people who play with that car. So that's Scott's own personal possession. And what he doesn't know about this car, and what he doesn't know about the historic vehicles that we also have here on display, isn't worth knowing. So before I hand you over to Scott, I'll take a step back and introduce to you the new Lotus Emira.
A sports car isn't meant to go unnoticed. To be something truly special, it has to do more than just turn heads. It should turn convention on its head. Move forward to a different place. The Lotus Emira, not just another sports car, the other.
Well, hello everybody, and a very good evening. I think I speak on behalf of everybody at Lotus Cars. We're all justifiably very proud of this, and we like to think it's one of the finest road cars that perhaps we built. As Jeff alluded to, we launched the car July the 6th. We then took the car to Goodwood. On our stand, we had over 25,000 visitors, and the demand has been absolutely unprecedented. And I think a lot of that is the draw to the car because of the way that it looks. You know, I look at this now, and it still does things to me that the Esprit did when I was a kid, when I first saw the Esprit. It's a fantastically proportioned car. We've got a 20-inch wheel at the front now, which I think has really helped to give the front some assertion. But there's some wonderful lines going on. We've got some real athleticism. It's a very dynamic looking car, proportionately as well, and it doesn't matter where you stand and how you look at the car, whether it's dead side, dead on, front three quarter, from low, from high, it just works from every angle. I think it's absolutely dramatic. Some wonderful surface detailing going on, but it's not intimidating. It's not despoiled in any way. In actual fact, there's some very clever articulation of design principle, and in particular aerodynamics. So, you know, at Lotus, everything's about engineering, it's about efficiency, it's about process and elegance, actually. We don't make pressed steel cars, and we don't just bolt spoilers on for reasons. So aerodynamics is a core philosophy, it's a core cornerstone of our business, and how we put cars together, how we conceive cars. Aerodynamics is a principle that's been very close to our hearts since the mid-50s, when Costin was dressing Chapman's smaller Mark 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, etc. These were cars with tiny little engines that would cope with cars that had twice the capacity, but they would be quicker because they would be lighter and be more aerodynamic. They'd be more efficient as well. And in Formula One, a really good representation would be things like Type 49s, the old gold leaf car, which was the first Formula One car to start wearing wings. We were the first company to put wings on a Formula One car. We then did that again with the 72, the wedge-shaped car. 79 behind, I mean, that was a ground effects car. We're starting to use air underneath the car to suck the car down to the grid. And we still use a lot of aerodynamic principle, and there's an awful lot on this car as well. So when you read through a brochure or on our website, optimised aerodynamics, you might think, what exactly is that? If I may, what I'd like to do is just walk you around and show you some of those elements and see if there's a tangible benefits to some of the things we do. We've got such a big group. Normally I say, drive around the car, let's have a look, but I'm hoping everybody can see and try and follow me. If we look at the frontal aspect of the car, we've got a typical Lotus mouth there, and obviously what that's going to do is ingest air in through the front-mounted radiator, in through the HVAC cooling package. We've got a couple of vanes either side of that Lotus mouth. We'll come back to those in a moment. So as it comes rushing in, it comes in through this front mouth. It goes into a pressure duct, which is like a spoiler. It gathers air up, and it helps push the front of the car down. It sits underneath this wonderful floating surface, which also gives the car some real identity, this wonderful flowing line around these LED headlights. We've got a couple of evacuation wheels there, as we call them, so we're not wasting that air, we're going to use that air and we're going to harness the air. And one of the things that we do with harnessing air is there are two enemies at play here. One is drag and the other is lift. Lift is bad, it's bad news. It corrupts all of the great work that our suspension engineers do, so we need to control that. Drag makes the car inefficient, it uses more fuel, it won't punch its way through the air cleanly, so we need to clean it up, we need to harness the air. Air's free, as Chapman discovered, let's use it to our advantage. So, air's going to come roaring out of those evacuation slots. It's going to wash its way around the side of the car. Now what we don't want to do is create a big wake. We need to keep the air tight to the side of the car, and one of the ways that we do that is clever. We've got two very strong dominant lines on the side of the car. They start at about the hip joint here and they go round. The other one is much softer and it will just curl around this air duct. You'll notice that those lines don't intersect, and the reason they don't intersect is clever. If they did, this wouldn't work, but underneath this patch here, you'll see there's a plane area. As the wind's coming around here, we now generate a thing called a pressure core vortex, and what that does is it keeps the air tight to the side of the car. That's got another benefit: the faster you're going, the more air the engine needs to combust. So we have a ram air effect into this duct, which feeds the engine's intake requirement. On the other side, we have a duct that works for cooling benefit. It keeps the engine cabin temperatures down. If we look at the side of the car, as the air is coming over the front structure, over the glass house, over the top, over the rear, it's attracted to this ducktail, and this will now generate a low pressure area, and what happens here is actually quite clever, because it sucks back cold air in underneath the glass, circulates that, and removes hot air from the engine bay by the use of these 6 extraction slots either side of the glass house. If you were to pick this car up, it's completely flat underneath. It's almost mirror finish, but at about this point here and across, we've got a series of ducts which gather that air up and push an inverted spoiler down. We call that a rear diffuser. It's got a big diffuser on this car, so we're using the air underneath the car to help just push the car back down again. Coming back to these slots either side of the Lotus mouth, you'll see that again they work to help cool things down. So we'll have a supercharger cooler, we have an oil cooler on the other side, but this is a charge cooler radiator on this side. If this was a V6, this is my fault. You'll notice there's a couple of black sections either side. Well, those are what we call air blades. They'll gather the air up, they'll pressure it through a duct, and that air is evacuated then, leading into this wheel arch here. One of the problems of wheel arches is the lift. They gather up huge amounts of turbulence. There are a pressure generator zone, and we need to tidy it up and control the airflow around the tyres wherever possible. So where it actually deflects against the leading edge of the tyre, it comes away from it. The residual air then rides a curtain of air down the side of the car, keeps it nice and tight, through this fluted sill structure. And you can't see it unless you get on the ground or the car's up in the air. But there's another hidden duct within that sill that feeds air into this rear wheel arch, and then we spit it out the back. We've got some big evacuation ducts in the rear architecture of the car. So those are some of the features that I quite like aerodynamically. I think it keeps the shape and the form really nice, and there's some very, very tight detailing on the car. You'll notice that there's no sort of big rubber waste seal on it. It all looks clean and neat and tight. It's a hidden seal, so we go bodywork straight onto glass without any corruption or interruption. It's a really great looking car. I've got a big round of applause to the design team. I think they knocked the ball right out of the park. In terms of the benefit from aero, this car over its predecessor, the Evora, 31% more downforce on this car, which is 55 kilograms, and that's an awful lot actually for a road application. Remember that 55 kilo, it's spread across a wider frontal track, so the benefit to you as a customer or as a driver, the car's much more stable. It's much more stable at speed than its predecessor ever was. You get a good feeling of reassurance from it. And also there's no corruption to any of the good work that the chassis guys have done. Now chassis technology is another thing that's very close to us at Lotus. We don't make a press steel car and just hang some struts off it. It goes completely against the grain. We always look for a more elegantly effective engineering solution. And we revolutionised, I think, chassis architecture back in 1995 with the use of extruded aluminium and bonded sections, because they're incredibly light, incredibly strong, and they've served us ever so well on Elises, Exiges, and we use the same technology for the Evora. Now, one thing I will point out, this is not an Evora carryover chassis. The technology is very similar, but it's different. Again, we have three main principal sections. We'll have front section in aluminium, and that controls all of the rolling hardware. It contains all of that, so it will contain 370mm front brakes, 4-pod AP calipers, the hydraulic steering rack, the coolant pack like I mentioned. That's all mounted on a separate aluminium structure, which is then bolted to the front of the main centre tub. At the back of the car we use a galvanised steel subframe, and that will contain all of the powertrain, even the exhaust, 350mm rear brakes, and the 4-pot calipers. All of that gets built up in-house, and then that bolts onto the back. It's galvanised steel on the V6, it's an alloy structure on the i4. When the SBAF cover, or the roll bar, is on the car and the roof is then put on, this car has a torsional stiffness of 26,300 Newton meters, and to give that some context, the Elise rates in at 10,000 Newton meters, and the stiffest esprit we ever did was 5,000 meters of torsional stiffness. So you can see the benefit in the advance in technology. It's still an incredibly light structure, incredibly strong, but then it allows the suspension engineers to really go to town and do their stuff. So when you use suspension like we do, which is a double wishbone arrangement with a coilover, you've got so many areas where you can control the spring rate, the damping, the rebound, the bushing, the transient hard points of roll bar arrangements, and all of these things, are very, very close to us. I don't think any of the products that we've ever built, we've been doing this for 73 years now, so it doesn't matter what generation of Lotus you've driven, whether it's a generation 1, a F6, a 7, a Type 14 Elite, generation 2 car, Elan Plus 2, Europa, the third generation, which was my favourite because we ran black and gold in that period, so Esprit, Elite, Excel, Eclat, or the fourth gen, the Elise, the Exige, the Evora. They're all fabulous to drive, which is why we always say we make cars that are for the drivers. This car's no exception. Very quickly, engines. I think we're all pretty well versed that there are two types. We've got a Toyota V6, it's a 3.5 litre, it develops 400 horsepower. It doesn't when it comes to us, so it's not a plug and play installation. We undress it and then we dress it for application, we supercharge it and we charge cool it, and we mate it to a gearbox that also we adapt for our purpose. So it has as a manual, it's a 6-speed close ratio manual. As a first edition car or as part of a driver's pack, it'll then get a Quaife ATV limited slip differential. We couple that engine also as an option, it's an £1,800 option, 6-speed ace and automatic. So if you like an automatic change, if you like a torque converter, we do that. Again, we program that for application, so it's not plug and play. We're asking that box to behave as we want it to behave in this chassis. The other engine we do, 2 litre, 4-cylinder, from technical partner AMG. We couple that to an 8-speed DCT, firecracker of an engine. I mean, they're both fabulous. I've been talking to a lot of people at these events, and it's a real sort of shift choice between which one should I go for. I mean, they are both fantastic. I can't advise terribly on that. You have to pick the one that floats your boat the most. They're superb. That's probably enough on hardware. I think the software, this is the biggest change, I think. I've been very happy living with Elises and Exiges as good little working partners for the last 20 odd years or so. But they can be hard work to live with on a daily basis. You know, you put your phone on the seat, before you know it, you've hit the brakes and the phone's now on the footwell, and it might be in bits if you were going a bit quickly. So when product marketing came to me and said, we're making a car with 2 windscreen wipers that are rain sensing and auto dimming mirrors and a seat that goes up and down and it tilts, and it's got 12-way adjustment, 4-way lumbar, and there'll be a 10-speaker KEF audio hi-fi system in the car, and 2 cup holders, and a glove box, and vanity mirrors. I got really quite excited actually, and I think there's been this huge paradigm shift in comfort, usability, functionality, technology, all of the things that you probably expect to find in a car in the 21st century. You'll find them most certainly in that, and it's incredibly comfortable actually. A really great GT car, much the same as the Esprit was when that came out. So this is something now that I think people can genuinely use for distance trips, for daily drives, whatever you need it for. But have we made it too soft? No, I really don't think so. I think all of the things that we love and have always loved about a car that wears the green and yellow badge, so the steering feel, the weighting of the controls, the intimacy of the drive, the connection with the car, all very much in this vehicle. It's still very much a car that is for the drivers. It's still a proper Lotus. A couple of bits of housekeeping, because I bet you're all itching to get amongst the car. If we can leave the doors open, 2 reasons for that. One, I think it's always good for a bit of fresh air through the cabin. Second, this is a representation of production intent. It's not actually a car that's been through the factory. It hasn't been through our quality control processes. This has been built in a styling studio by modelers and engineers. It's a representation of a i4 AMG powered car as a first edition. So everything you see is everything that you'll get. The only thing I will point out, seats are in a fixed position at the moment. They sit a little bit high as well. The foam in the backrest is quite dense, so they're pretty uncomfortable actually. They look right, but they won't be like that on the production car. This one also sits just a little bit lower. Every motor show I've ever been to, all the cars on the show stands look like they're doing 125 miles an hour, and they've got the area working on them. You want to buy yourself perhaps another 2 centimetres. There's a lot of 3D printed componentry in the car, so if you're looking at the product quality, I wouldn't be looking at this one. This is a model, it's a show car. If you need help with absolutely anything at all, come and find us. We're all wearing black and yellow t-shirts. We've got the staff in from Oakmere, we've got plenty of us from Lotus, and that's why we're here. We're here to answer your questions. We'd also like a bit of feedback from you if there's anything you particularly don't like on the car. I don't think there will be, I hope there isn't, but tell us too, it's a 2-way thing. We'll open the car up now, I think, and if there's a big queue around the car, you're very welcome to go upstairs, have a look at Concord, sit in that, wait for the queues to die down. Another thing I must say, actually, there's no struts on this boot lid, so if you are in a position where you're holding it, do let it down gently, because it'll go down with a great big bang and it'll make everybody jump. So I think that's enough from me. Thanks ever so much for listening. Enjoy the car, have a great evening. Thank you very much indeed.
What do you think of it then?
It's beautiful.